Okay. We seem to have a bit, sorry about that, bits of a problem my end. I'm hoping you can see and you can hear me now. My name's Christine and I am delighted to welcome you to this Google Digital Garage session all about how to make your social media strategy work for you and work for your business. As I say, I'm Christine. I am one of the trainers here for Google's free skills training program, the Google Digital Garage. I'm a marketeer by trade, and I've been working in marketing since before it was even digital. So what do we need to know today? Alongside me today, I have the wonderful Roshane. Now, Roshane's our moderator today. Very important role. She's the one who lets me know when there's been a slight connectivity issue and you can't actually see or hear me. She's also the one, more importantly, who's in the chat right now. She is there to ask you questions, answer your questions, drop you links. She is also one of our Google Digital Garage coaches, and she is a wealth of knowledge on all things social. So best thing to do is to jump on into the chat. To do that, you're going to need to be, as I say, signed in to your YouTube account. So if you're not signed in at the moment, head up to the icon on the right, sign up or sign in, and you can get involved in the chat. You can tell you're speaking to the moderator. She's called Roshane, and she has a little blue spanner next to her name that shows that she is the one in charge. Little bit of housekeeping. Any trouble viewing the webinar, for instance, if the presenter doesn't appear, try refreshing your page. A little bit of turn it off and then turn it on again, which is, by the way, exactly what I did this end. Seems to make everything go much better. Join in the instant chat, sign into your account to do so. Really important to do so, because if you get your questions into us, not only do you have the wonderful Roshane answering them as we go, but we're going to try and pause throughout the session and answer some of those questions live on air. So if there's a question that Roshane thinks would be really good for the whole group to hear, then she's going to ping that over to me and we will answer as many of them as we can as we go through the session. So, we're running this Google Digital Garage virtual training as part of our broader offering of courses. So if you want to know more about what's going on with those, check out the description on this. It's in the description below. It'll take you through to our website, which, hey, might well be the way you found me this morning. And I, for one, am glad you did. So let's have a look at what we're going to be taking a deeper interest in this morning. Today is all about how social media can help a business. So we'll kick off by looking at some of the ways that that's actually possible. Now, one just word of caution. What we are going to do today is go through lots of different things you could do. What I would hate for anybody leaving this session is to think that they have to try and do all of them. What I really want you to think, because we're talking about the strategy, it's as much what you don't do, what you choose not to do. I want you to really focus in on what's going to be of best benefit to you and to your business. So we'll look at some of the ways you could use your social media to help grow a business. Then we'll start to plan and think, okay, how do I go about doing this? So we've got a simple strategy, a simple plan that you can use to pull all these things together. And then at the end, we'll sprinkle a little bit of a next level on and some of the tips and tools that you can use to elevate your social media, make it easier for you maybe as well. So let's jump on in. For that, I know we have an international audience with us this morning. If you haven't already, jump into the chat, say hi to Roshane and let her know where you're joining us from this morning, what kind of business you're in and what you're hoping to get from it. The more we know about you, the better we can help you out. But for those of you based here in the UK, I wanted you to know that if you work for a small business or for a charity based here in the UK, you can sign up for a free one-to-one mentoring session from Google. As I say, these sessions are completely free and they're to help you one-to-one on a range of digital skills. Maybe that's pulling together your strategy, looking at where to go next with your website, or thinking back and looking over your analytics to see what's going on under the hood of your business. Sign up for those and book a session at www.co.uk mentoring. So let's have a think about social media. Social media is all around us, but and lots of us use it socially. But there's ways that it can be used to help grow a business. And the reason it's so great for businesses is because basically it's where a lot of our customers are hanging out. So depending on your audience, and we'll talk a little bit about audience in a little while, a lot of our customers, potential customers, clients, audience, beneficiaries, the people we're trying to connect with, there's a good chance that they might be active on one or more social media platforms. 44 million active social media users in the UK. Average use, now actually, we see lots of different statistics from this. Average daily use on social media on any device, around about 2 hours. So we're thinking Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram. That was the other one. I knew I was missing one of the big ones. But actually, we're also thinking here about YouTube. YouTube's a social media platform. We do courses entirely focused on getting going in YouTube as a separate entity, but it is a social network. So when you start to say that, actually, maybe that 2 hours doesn't sound so much. Let me know, do you think, how long do you think you use on social media? And if you don't know, or you don't want to know, maybe you don't dare to think about it, you can look at how long you use different apps. If you look at the settings on your digital well-being in your phone, will tell you how long you spend on different apps. Might be worth investigating for yourself. But why that's important is if people are using social media, then they might be able to be reachable from the business. All right. And why might a business want to be involved in social media? If you need to think of some good reasons, well, what's the reason that most businesses would want to do pretty much anything is to generate some sales. All right. So using social media allows you to potentially reach new audiences. Okay, so if 84% of the population are on some social media platforms, it might be a good place for them to be there to receive your messages. It's not just about posting stuff up and sales will happen. There's a lot more to it. But in terms of what it could help you to do is reach new audiences. The more you can connect with new audiences, the more you can tell your story, the more likelihood there is that they get to know you and they want to come in. But it can also allow you to connect with even the same customers in different ways. Maybe show a different side to what you're doing, create those new opportunities. Sometimes, I mean, some of my favorite, sales growth areas have been because people have listened to what's happening. They've listened to the reviews, they've read the reviews, listened to the reviews, listened to feedback, gathered intelligence, and then used that to hit and find a new need that people have, create those new business opportunities. It's fantastic as a marketeer because you can be highly targeted with your messaging. So rather than trying to think, everybody needs to hear everything about me, you can start picking out, well, these are the messages that are really going to hit home with this certain set of people. And how do we find them? And that could be via what they're interested in, how they interact, lots of different ways that we can do that. And we'll look at that as we go through. But really importantly is being sociable on social media, joining in, building relationships. People still buy from people. All right. Just because we've got new tools to help us get our messages across doesn't mean that the people elements aren't super important. So what it allows us to do is to tell our story. Our story is wrapped up in our brand. Brand is a really interesting thing. Brand is all about what other people think of you, really. So we tell our story, the right audience hears our story and starts to think that we might be somebody that they'd want to be in business with. But in terms of adding more value to make it a stronger brand, it's not just the storytelling, it's the way we treat people so we can make our customer service better. If we had a show of hands here for anybody who had ever made a complaint on social media, used social media to connect to a company in the hope that it would be quicker than having to sit on the phone. Hopefully, we'll also have some people here who, if I asked her for a show of hands, would say they'd made a compliment on social media, left a positive review, let people know something about a small business that was a good thing. If you don't do that, it's a really good thing for small businesses to, collect reviews and encourage those sorts of things. The two-way conversations that can spark. There again, a lot of this is intelligence gathering, making people feel valued, making them feel they have that direct line, the hotline almost. And because social media is so responsive, it's a fantastic place to build that element of the service side of your business. It's not all just about sell stuff quick as you can and forget about it, but deepening and broadening those relationships with people. You can show a new side. That's the storytelling element again. Maybe you've got somebody who could take you with a tour of what goes on behind the scenes, how these things are made, what the origins are, why you make the business decisions around sustainability, about recycling packaging, whatever it is you do. Smaller businesses, local businesses have this all have amazing stories to tell. I meet hundreds of them in my work, and I love the stories that they have to tell. And then shouting about them. And social media is an amazing place to do that. And get involved, find brand advocates. You can find those influential followers. You can really get involved in that community. All right. All of which goes together. If we know more about the customer, if we know more we can tell our story better, then our marketing can absolutely improve. But a few things that people might not realize is that actually a good social media presence that is written with keywords and phrases in mind, that is written with that knowledge of how search engine optimization, for example, works, then it can actually, social media, quite often, social media messaging, social media presences actually appear very quickly in the search results. Reason being is because they're one of the factors that we think influences how search is ranked is that things are updated often and they are good quality sources. So actually having a really, social media platforms are crawled and indexed all the time, almost constantly. So something being put onto social media can actually get into the search results quite quickly. It might take a while for your website to be indexed, but your social media platform will probably index quite quickly. Another good reason it's worth making the links from your social media profiles into your own website. Start building up those links as well. That's a different topic that we'll cover on a different day, but it can really help attract more people to your profile, to your presence, bring them to your website, look after them, nurture them, learn about them. By running experiments of your own, seeing what kind of content people reacted to, what kind of messages, what time of day, you can start to really learn more about what your audience likes. Not just what the general people probably think of, but actually really focusing in on some data and learning about what other people like. And also, you can also keep an eye on competitors. And competitive research is a key part of any marketing strategy. And actually, when you're thinking about competitors, don't just think about people in the same areas you doing the same sort of thing that you are. They're your direct competitors. But what about somebody in a different area of the country? What are the best in class doing? What are people who serve the same kind of group of customers? If I'm in financial services, and I'm looking for a certain type of customer, who else is serving that customer? Maybe it's a solicitor, maybe it's an accountant. Those different businesses that do something allied to you, probably going for the same kind of customer base. If you can see what works well for them, maybe you can adapt it, test it, try it, get some ideas. So it's not just about focusing on those very direct customers, thinking a much bigger picture. And try and understand what's going on in your world, in your competitors' world, and also in that customer's world. So a way to think about a lot of marketing is to actually question yourself, actually pose maybe some difficult questions, some searching questions that you then go away and get the answers to. So the kinds of questions I'd be looking to find the answer to when I'm looking at seeing whether my social media is working. And you'll do this at the beginning, but then keep coming back to these kinds of questions, and all of these kinds of questions. What kind of updates do I post? Interesting question. How am I going to get the answer to do that? Well, I'll run some experiments. I'll try some different types of update. And then what I'll do is I'll measure what happens. Analytics, as with so much marketing, analytics and looking at the data and working out what that data is telling us is super important. And questions are how we get there. When's the best time to engage with the audience? When are they out and about? When are they ready to receive your messages? I had a lovely, lovely, lovely one-to-one, actually, it was, with a business who they sold items for young families. And predominantly, they discovered that, Facebook, because they were trying to reach mums. But what they actually found was on a Thursday night, after about 8 o'clock, they'd get an upswing in browsers and an upswing in orders. And what they kind of related it to, the fact that was maybe that person was sitting down with a glass of wine, doing a bit of browsing, finding, I think the main platform these people were looking at was Facebook, finding the items on Facebook. They were then making the orders there and then, late at night, 8 o'clock plus. And actually what that business did was, they had always worked their business around their own preferences, and they'd never worked a Friday. They didn't want to work. They wanted to work part-time, so they'd always taken Friday off. Actually, what they changed to do, because they saw that upswinging activity on the Thursday, which meant logistics, if they could get the orders prepped and packed on the Friday and out to the post, then their customers got this amazing customer service. So by looking at the data, pulling in the data from, in this case, the social media platform was Facebook, looking at what happened on their website, looking what that translated to in orders, and they arranged their whole strategy around focusing on these people who were taking the action and buying. So think of the questions. Who are you? Do you have influential followers? Does anybody, and you're not having to try and reach some kind of celebrity here. There'll be local people who have influence. There'll be, people who really love what you're doing and happily shout about it to their friends and their followers. If you can identify those sorts of people, they are your brand influence, your brand ambassadors. How can you work with them? Make sure they feel special, make sure they have all the best things they could possibly want to talk about. And you can look at times and things as well. There's so much that knowing and looking at the analytics is going to help you to target and help you to get the most engagement for your investments of time, your investments of resources, and potentially with social as well, your investments of money. Because things to remember, we have, people say, we've got about an 8-second attention span and it's getting shorter. Some people say it to be about 3 seconds on social media to grab somebody's attention. What really, for me, is the key is your content has to be good enough to grab the attention as the thumb scrolls from the top to the bottom of the screen. When that message has gone off the screen, it's disappeared. So what you want to do is think about how what you put out is going to stop that thumb from scrolling. We'll talk about some ways you can do it. We also have a webinar that's a sister webinar to this one that's called Writing for Social Media. And that really goes into that content creation side, the creating of amazing content that's going to stop that thumb. Because attention spans are short, there's tons of competition out there. Because it's such an amazing place that your customers are hanging out, other businesses know that too. So there's lots of competition from other businesses. There's lots of competition from other platforms. New platforms are always coming and trying to challenge and get that attention. There's also attention from, other things that people could be doing, getting out and going and playing a game or doing something outside. I mentioned budgets a little bit already, but it's really important to realize that just because you can set up an account for free and start posting for free, actually to have a proper business strategy around social media is probably going to come quite quickly to needing to boost with ads. And of course, it's not always free anyway, because your time has value. You sitting here with me this morning, and I'm so glad that you are all here. But when something says it's free, it sometimes don't devalue your time learning about it, your time that you could be doing something else with the business. Don't let the creation of social media become an entire role in itself unless it's paying you back and paying your business back for the time it's taking. All right. And I feel like this is the health warning part of the morning, that once it's public, it is public. We all have heard of those PR disasters where somebody's put out, a message on the wrong account, or they've, something's gone out that wasn't on brand, that wasn't what they exactly wanted to say. And things, if once they're out there, they could stay out there forever. So just be really careful. I think for a business, it's worth definitely having checks and balances as to who's allowed to post, what they're allowed to post, when they're allowed to post, and how they go about doing it. For example, I keep all my business accounts separate from my personal ones, completely separate from my personal ones, in the fact that if I were maybe going out for the evening, I would even log off the app or take the app off my phone that would allow me to, by accident, get to my business accounts. I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to let you guys fill in the gaps. So let's just pause in. I'll check in with Roshane and see what's going on out there in the world. Okay, so no big questions at the minute. I can see we've got tons of people joining us, which is amazing. We've got people from we've got quite a lot of people from charities and non-profits this morning. How fantastic. Tons of things that going on for non-profits in the world. I know we've also got electric home business. We've got people from all over the world. This is amazing to have you all with us. And I'm just loving what Serena said. Mostly using TikTok, YouTube, and Pinterest. Can't be bothered with Instagram and haven't used Twitter in like a decade. I think that is the most honest explanation of what's going on in a world ever. I'm loving that. And that's really important, actually, Serena, and for everybody else, that, what's true today will change, will evolve. So different platforms are going to be for different reasons. We'll talk about that now, I think, shall we? So let's think about how you go about building up that social media strategy. All right, let me get all my screens back in the right place. So there is undoubtedly, for a lot of businesses, a huge opportunity out there with social media. Okay. But there's also the chance to get distracted fairly easily. So it's really worth having a strong strategy, a really good plan that's going to keep you on track, keep you moving forward, keep you trying things, testing things, but really making sure that you're always focusing your time, your efforts, your resource on the best things possible. So I'll show you this. What we'll do is I'll show you this now as headlines. You might want to jot this down at the top of your piece of paper. What we're going to do is think about each of these boxes that you're going to need to put together. We're going to think about audience, the people who you're trying to reach. That's start, middle, and end for most marketing strategies. I always want you to be coming back and back and back to who those people are. So the audience. We're going to then think about you as a business and what does your business need to achieve. From those business goals, we'll start to maybe think about some social goals. But actually, what's really key is that your social media work supports what you're trying to achieve as a business. And there are lots of different ways that that can happen. So we'll take a look at those. Knowing of your audience and knowing what you need to achieve as a business, from that and only then do we pick the social platform. It says social platforms. We'll probably start with one. Test one, try one, learn how it works, and then decide whether you want to do more of that platform or not. And at some point you might decide, okay, well, I've got that one fairly working well. Do I want to bring in a second platform? What I don't want anybody to do is try and be everything to everybody on all platforms. For no other reason than actually different platforms require different strategies. So we'll pick our platform. We want to then think about how we're going to come across on social media. Bear in mind that social media platforms are all about people talking to people. How's your brand going to speak? How are you going to come across on social media? We touch a little bit on tone of voice here. If you want to know more about developing that tone of voice, as I say, our sister webinar, the Writing for Social Media webinar, goes into that in a lot of detail. And then we've got to measure. What's success? What's it going to look like? How will I know what I've achieved when I've achieved it? How am I going to run those experiments to see what works better? So audience is our first step. So remember, we are trying to reach people. And what we try and do a lot with marketing is come up with what we would say are pen portraits or personas, an ideal representative of our customer. Now, first question I'll ask when I ask with any business is, who's your audience? Who are you trying to reach? And lots of business will say everyone and anyone, anybody could buy this product, which in some cases is true. Yes, they could buy the product, use the service. However, there's going to be something about what you're doing that's going to especially appeal to a certain group of people, a smaller portion of just everybody, which is fantastic, because if you try and market to everybody, you spread yourself too thinly. So good social media marketing is all about, and any marketing really, but social especially, is about really honing in and focusing on the actual people that you're trying to connect with. You're better to have a small group of people who really understand, really connect, really get what you're doing, than try and reach a big group of people who honestly couldn't care less. All right, so who are these people? What are they into? What is it about what they like that's going to connect and resonate with what it is that you do? Sometimes there's a geographical, geography is a fantastic way for lots of small businesses to reduce their audience. And even if you're an online business that could sell anywhere, sometimes having that local story, that strong local story, is that, there is a great emphasis that people are more likely to buy from people in their local communities. Or maybe that strong local story will work to people in other areas, So maybe it's a taste of home for them. Maybe there's something else going on there. But really trying to think about how to narrow down your audience to people who are a kind of good mix, a good match rather for what it is you're trying to do. So who influences them? Where do they get their information from? What kinds of things are they going to be interested in? When are they usually online? I had that, it's quite a stereotype view of these, the mum buying for the family, going online, but they're not actually going online during the day. They're going online in the evening when they're watching something on Netflix and they're scrolling through their phone. Actually, that's a stereotype for a reason. There are probably lots of people who are living their life in that sort of way. So really, really, really important is to find out which social platforms they use. And I'm going back to Serena's example here. So Serena now uses TikTok, YouTube, and Pinterest. Can't be bothered with Instagram. I don't know if you used it before, and used to use Twitter, but now doesn't. Our preferences change. They do move through. So trying to find out which platform. Now, the best way to find out the platforms, how do you actually go about doing that? That if you can, the best way to talk about your audience is to talk to them, to ask them questions, to get involved with them. If you have a kind of business where you meet people, then a great place to start with your audience is to start with those people that you've already met and try and expand to if these guys like me, how would more people like them? How can I find more people like them? You could ask them what social platforms they use. My hairdresser does exactly that. Obviously, hairdressers, they have you captive when they're doing your hair for a little while, and he chats away, but he'll find out, what kinds of, just in the general chit chat, are they using Instagram, or are they now onto TikTok, or are they using, what are they using? Where would they find their information? And he uses that to inform where he puts out the different kinds of messages he wants to use. So targeting, putting out messages that are customized to a smaller group of people that you've spoken to, if you can. Within your kind of customer base, you might start to see recurring themes. Like there are some people who tend to buy from you for their family, who are doing it at 8 o'clock at night over a glass of wine and a good scroll. But you might find that there's another group of people who are, maybe they're busy professionals and they're working in a separate area, and they scroll for you when they're commuting, or when they're on their lunch break, or when they should be watching webinars to learn stuff about other things. So trying to segment, if you think segments are like if you cut open an orange and you get all the different pieces of the orange that go up to make the whole, think of the orange as your whole potential audience, and the sections, the segments within it are the people who are kind of homogenous. They work and think in the same sorts of way. They come to you for the same sorts of reasons. What you might start to decide is that actually the platforms that people will use to find information on you might be different. They're scrolling at different times of the day. They're looking for different kinds of content. And this is why a one-size-fits-all approach doesn't work. Just blasting out the same stuff onto as many social platforms as you can think of doesn't work. So trying to focus in on specific groups, and just as I said, maybe take 1 or 2 social platforms to start with, I would actually start with 1 or 2 groups that you're going to try and identify and work with, rather than trying to do too much too soon. So maybe identify your most valuable, the highest value baskets. You might get somebody who buys buys a small amount of stuff, or you might have somebody who buys a lot. How can you get more of the people who buy a lot? And try and identify what's going on with them. Okay. One great way is online surveys. A lot of the social platforms actually make fun interactions that you can use to get information. So you could have 2 side-by-side options, which like this one or this one, this one or this one. Get your audiences to vote. They can then have some fun engagement that they're actually helping you make the product decisions as to which colorway they're going with this autumn. And you start to learn about the people who are interested and are engaging with you. Okay. Otherwise, simple surveys, simple forms, what have you. You can also take a look at your different platforms. If you already have platforms, if you already have a website, trying to distill some information from those already. Most social media platforms, especially if they want you to run ads at some point, offer inbuilt analytics. They all look slightly different, but they will tell you the same sorts of things. So here this is actually a Google Analytics snapshot. We've got age of visitors, and a kind of male-female split. This is the exact same sort of info presented slightly differently coming in from Facebook. And what this one, actually Facebook one's quite sweet, because it's got in grey is the kind of profile of the platform itself. This is your average for Facebook. And if your Facebook audience was representative of Facebook as a whole, then your blue squares that are your audience would match exactly where the grey squares are, but they don't, because they show your slightly older audience. You're slightly maybe getting more in the way of men coming to view than, the other way around. So you can see that, there is information there to be had for free just by having an account at all. This one's really interesting. I think this one's from Twitter, and this shows a really interesting. This is a month's worth of data, and it goes up for 5 and down for 2. And engagement goes up for 5, then down for 2. Now, without going into this tiny, tiny, tiny little screenshot in any great detail, I'm thinking it's probably got something to do with days of the week. You might find that you get more engagement around payday. You might find that you get more engagement at weekends, during the week, different times of the day. Be very careful. If I had this 5 and then 2, 5 and then 2, the immediate thing would be, people aren't interested in me during the week. They're only interested Sorry, at the weekends. They're only interested during the week. But then I want to look at it from my perspective. When are we posting? If we are only posting content out during the week because we work Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, maybe we're missing a trick. Maybe people would be interested in the weekend if we only posted some things out there. So the first thing I'd be doing would be running an experiment. And if I upped my level and made it that we post levelly each day, what does that do to engagement? If engagement still goes down at the weekend, then that tells me, okay, we've got a Monday to Friday audience. What does that tell me? Leads to more questions. If I see I've got, goes down for 2, if I start posting out at the weekend and I see that engagement rise, I could actually get what's 2/7 worth of extra engagement just for the fact that I'm posting out at the weekends as well. I could even find that it goes the other way and people are super interested about me at the weekend. I just never thought to ask. So the more we can understand about our data, the better. And that's when we can start to get really good insights. Go into any data with an open mind and a questioning mind. You can join us for our Get Started with Analytics webinar to learn more about how to start interrogating data, if that's something you'd be interested in. Okay, you can tell people are kind of my passion and finding of audiences, because I will talk about that for ages, but I best not, because the next thing we need to think about is you and your business and what you need to achieve. So start with what you need to achieve as a business, then think about how all the different things you could do on social would support you. It's a good time at this point to think of maybe as a customer journey. So, before you can sell people stuff, they have to know about you. Before they can know about you, they have to be able to be aware of you and hear about you. So you start actually with raising brand awareness, working out, who knows about us already? How do we find more people? But then it might be, okay, how do these people, what content do they need to make them trust us, to make them like us, to make them understand what it is we've got that's so amazing? Then you'll come down and go, okay, now these people, we can pull them through and help them to take that step to buy from us. And beyond that, down at the bottom, you've got people who've already bought from you. How do we broaden and deepen that relationship? How do we get them to buy again? How do we get them to buy more next time? How do we get them to do the repeat? How do we get them to tell their friends? Now, your social goals can help you at every single one of those stages. Traditionally, I guess we'd say helping people to be aware of us at the top, finding those new customers, and then helping those loyal customers at the bottom to stay connected, to say, are the two classic ways, I guess. Feels a bit weird for a technology that's probably been around, 15, 20 years, to be talking about classic strategies. But this is how fast moving this industry really is. Lots of things you could be doing. Make sure whatever activity, so if you want to find influencers, find advocates, why are you doing that? Is that so you use their audiences to expand your own? You're raising your brand awareness that way. That's a fantastic goal. All right. Just be very clear on why you're doing what it is you're doing. It's going to help you make out. There's, in terms of setting out your goals, you might have heard of the Double Diamond framework. It's about problem solving, really, but it can really be well used to help you explain what's going on with your goals. So you discover, you think about what the goal is and really focus in on how it helps the business. If you can't work out a way for it to help the business, then it's probably not the right thing to be doing. So you can start getting rid of some activities there. Then define. So think about what it is you want to do and identify if there are any barriers. All right. So your barriers might be that you don't know how to do it. You don't have time to do it. You don't have the skills, etc. List these things out. You don't have a platform there yet. You don't know a certain piece of information. That's okay. List out all these potential barriers and then think about developing what is it that you need to do. Do you need to do training? Do you want to do some mentoring? Do you need to, improve your brand assets, your artwork and things? What do you need to do to help you achieve that goal? And then you get on and work out how to mitigate all of those issues and deliver that goal itself. So setting your social media goal is a bit like solving any other kind of business problem. Really dig deeper. We used to have a thing called the 5 whys. You'd ask, why are you doing this? And you say, oh, well, I'm doing it because of this, but why are you doing that? And think like you're explaining it to a toddler. But why? But why? But why? And you'll get down to the nugget of, this is actually what we're trying to achieve here. Okay. So now we get to think about channels. And it might be that, you have a fairly strong, from talking to your audience, you have a fairly strong idea of the channels they use. But it's not just the channels they use. Loads of people, when I ask that question, Philippa says TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. 4 different channels that you're using. Obviously, we talked about Serena with her 3. We had lots of people who were using lots of different channels. Most likely, most people use different channels for different purposes. I use Twitter to get a quick update on what's going on in the world. I might use Instagram for inspiration for travel or food, or, just to look at the shiny things that everyone else is up to. I might use Facebook to keep in contact with friends and family, births, marriages and deaths, but also maybe to find local businesses. What's going on locally to me? There's that kind of community element there. I'll use LinkedIn maybe to find out about what's going on in my professional life. I'm not a TikToker because I'm far, far, far too old. But, people will use different platforms for different reasons. Okay, so think about the kind of platform that's going to be right. Just because people use all 4 of those platforms, they are very likely to be on different platforms for different reasons. If you're trying to catch me when I'm in professional mode and looking to buy industrial widgets for my factory, don't try and target me on Facebook. All right. LinkedIn is very much the platform for that. So is there a business to business or a business to lifestyle focus? Because what's really, and I always say, start with one, test it, try it, do more of what works, do less of what doesn't. And the reason is because they all need different strategies. So just blasting out the same piece of content, just because you can do it, blasting out that same piece of content isn't going to help. So there we are. We've got some different, you've probably heard of all these platforms, but Twitter, as I said, really good for quick fire conversations. It is fantastic for finding journalist contacts. If you want to do some PR, if you want to let the local news know what you're up to, if you want to get an article, if you want to get your hand soaps in an article in one of the glossy magazines, this is where you'll find potentially the journalists who are doing those things. Take some research, take some network building, but you can absolutely get yourself up there. Use images. Although we think of Twitter as a very much words-based platform, people still use the thumb to scroll, so you can still use your images to grab their attention. Facebook, it's kind of the original and best, I guess. Loads of space to add info about you. I would expect to see, if somebody was a local business, to probably have a presence on here, maybe running events, publicising their events, connecting in with their local community groups. Great, you can do this thing, and wherever you can do this, have a button. That's called your call to action. Your button, so here they've got create a page because that's the thing, but your call to action button could be shop now, buy, contact us, visit us, order online. What's the action that you want them to take? Make sure that action is as simple and as easy to understand and to do as possible. GIFs work, video. Facebook seems to love it when you host your video on their platform. They don't want you sending people off to YouTube. They want people staying on their platform, consuming their ads, inhabiting that area. The sooner as you go off, then that you're going to hang out somewhere else. And it might be a while before you come back. So Facebook, as I say, seem to love it when you host natively on theirs. And I think most platforms are going to, if they're not that way already, will be. So think about how you can host natively on the platform you're on. Instagram, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful images. All right. Well tagged. Don't use too many hashtags, Make sure any hashtag you use is absolutely relevant, that your picture that they're going to see is absolutely relevant to the audience. My wonderful hairdresser used to have a stock bunch of hashtags that he would post with every image he puts. But he does, upstairs, he does gents' hair and barbering. Downstairs, he's got a beautiful ladies' salon. And he would tag both things because he did both things. He would tag both things in every image. But that's not relevant. If I click on, the barbering hashtag, I don't expect to see these lovely long locks of hair. So it was really important, a big learning curve, that don't just have boilerplate that you plonk on all the time. think about each image, use hashtags that are going to be super relevant to that image. You don't have to use hundreds of them. The fewer you can use that are more relevant, the better. High quality, consistent, beautiful story, telling of your story and beautiful images. With the stories aspect, where these photos disappear after 24 hours, you can drive great engagement with temporary content, but it also means you don't have to be as polished and as beautiful with those images. They can be a bit more behind the scenes, a bit less, polished than maybe your main page are. Think about your brand colors. Think about you're using all the imagery to really tell your story here. LinkedIn, we've mentioned quite a lot, but it's a great place if you are a business that works with other businesses to find clients, to use. You can reach out to all the facilities managers within the certain type of institute, for example, of a certain seniority. So you can really start to pull your audiences closely together. I like it when you have business pages and you actually post content on LinkedIn. So maybe you have some thought leadership, some white papers, some words and pictures, videos as well. LinkedIn has become a lot smarter. It's not just a place to have your online CV anymore. It really is about connecting. Be authoritative about your industry. Be authoritative about what it is you're doing. And think about that longer form content. People will, because they can pretend they're doing it for work, people will read longer form content on LinkedIn. YouTube, most popular video sharing site in the world and also the second largest search engine in the world. Fantastic place to be discovered online. People love how-tos. Okay, so you can go behind the scenes. You can tell your story a bit deeper. If you have an expert craftsperson in your workshop, people would love to see how behind the scenes they make what it is that they do, what it is that you do. It's not going to mean they're going to be able to copy it. It's going to mean that they can aspire to it. They can see why you're maybe a little bit more expensive because of the time and the love and the care and the quality that's being made. Okay, so worth getting involved in video. We have, if you want to know about the strategies and the steps to go through for creating video, then we do have a webinar. I think it's called Create Video for YouTube. I'll get Roshane to double check and just let us know. But we have two webinars around video, and one that's very much focused on business, and it's about how to go about creating those videos for YouTube. So that might be a good one if it is something you're interested in a bit deeper. So now we want to think about that social voice. All right, we go into all this in a lot of depth in our Writing for Social Media webinar, but really you want to come up with a set of rules that say this is how I'm going to behave on different platforms, and it might be different for different platforms. How am I going to tell my story? How am I going to always behave consistently? Am I going to be formal or informal? Where am I going to put my logo? What kind of color palettes am I going to use? Which images? What font? Where are the, what's the mix going to be? How am I going to incorporate video content? All of those do's and don'ts as to how you're going to come across. Your tone of voice, your personality, if it can come across consistently, even with different people posting, then that's really the gold standard. That's what you're looking to achieve. If you then have somebody that you hire in to run your campaigns for you, having those sets of guidelines is going to keep you consistent no matter who is posting for you. So yeah, here are a few ideas, a particular tone that resonates. The most important thing that it resonates with your customers. If I'm a serious person doing serious work, that financial services, I wouldn't expect them to be super provocative and, saying crazy things. I wouldn't expect them to be very lots of fun. I'd accept, serious stuff, money's involved. I want to see a serious presence that I can trust. If somebody's, selling something else that is genuinely more fun, then I want to see that fun side as well. Think about how your customer's going to react to those messaging. One of my absolute favorite campaigns ever is the This Girl Can. It's an ongoing campaign. It's run by Sport England, I think. And the idea is that to get more women, to fill the gap between more women not feeling like they can exercise. It's a really cool tone of voice that they use. It's all about, big hair, bad hair, don't care. It's all about, there's a lot of, the tone of voice was always very informal. It was very friendly. There's some amazing things they've done with this campaign. Like you can make your own, This Girl Can asset. You put your own photo with either one of their slogans or one of their own, and you can actually make your own assets, which of course that becomes, then they share them out. You get this kind of social idea of people doing the sharing for you. So think about different ways that you could think about those things as well. Step 5 is your success. How are you going to define? What are you looking to try and measure? Measurements on social media is super important, super interesting. Just because it's easy to measure likes doesn't mean that that's a good measure to use. If I want, what you measure changes behavior. If I task somebody with getting lots of likes, lots of shares, then the best thing they're going to do is post cat videos and, funny falling over stuff, pictures of their lunch. Loads of people like those sorts of things. Be careful with what you measure. All right. Don't get distracted by those wrong numbers. What are you actually trying to achieve? Go back to that goal. I would rather have fewer followers who are in the right categories. So don't just say more followers, say more followers in this particular segment. More engagement at these times or these particular people. And obviously, it could be, because you can look at your web analytics, more visits to the website, more sales on the website, more contacts via our social channels, quicker response times. You can measure lots and lots and lots of different things. Number of reviews positively, number of good reviews, moving it up. All right. And remember that what success means for you might well change over time. Okay. Mentioned it a couple of times, but paying within organic reach will only get you so far. And it is actually super, super easy across all different platforms to boost posts and start putting your message in front of the people you want to be able to see you, rather than just hoping that they're somewhere in that soup of people who are out there. I think it's in Writing for Social Media we go a bit deeper into some of the things you can target for actually on the different platforms. So here is your 5-step plan. We think about the audience, the people, who they are, what you need to achieve as a business. Then we think about which platform is going to help us to achieve that, the messaging we're going to use, the tone of voice we're going to do, and make sure we are measuring as we go. Measure quite regularly, make tweaks, adjustments, do more of what works, do less of what doesn't. Right, I can see we've got tons of questions coming in, which is amazing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to park them for a second. I want to, because I would happily chat to you about all of this stuff all day. I'm not allowed to do so. Roisin gets cross. What I'm actually going to do is just take you through some of these tools. And then at the end, we'll answer as many questions as we can together. So hardest thing to do on social media is come up with things to say. Right? So start maybe thinking about breaking it down into different kinds of content that you could post. So rather than waking up every morning and thinking, oh, I have to post something today. And then what happens is you'll have a couple of good ideas, and sometimes people will post 3 things in a row and then nothing for weeks. Start trying to plan out your content. I always have a content calendar. My content plan is, honestly, a content plan can as much be as a blank wall with, or a whiteboard with, pens and rubby outies, or Post-its on a board. You can do it in a spreadsheet, different ways of doing it. But basically, like a calendar, I'll be saying, right, these are going to be my content themes. Where are we now? We're mid-September. We're pretty much October. So October, November, December. Crikey, we've got Christmas in there. We've got fireworks in there. We've got the change of the year in there. We've got the nights going dark in there. Look at the shape of the next 3 months. What key points do you want to reach? By now, I'd want to have, September is already running. Right now, I want to be working my October. Where's my content coming from? What am I going to post on what days? Am I going to go behind the scenes for a little bit? Do I have any announcements to make? If I have an announcement to make, don't just make the announcement on the day. Build up to it. How am I going to build up, generate some excitement? And then once that announcement's made, how am I going to tail that down and actually keep that announcement going? How am I going to follow up with it? Do I have any operational stuff? How am I going to put people in there to respond? Making sure I'm available. Don't post the same across all channels, and don't just repeat the same content time and time again. All right. Make sure you can repurpose content, but make sure you make changes and put it where it's genuinely going to be of interest. And don't forget that calendar should include the weekends, even if you don't work them. I've spoken before about that This Girl campaign. In terms of experiences, they got the public to share their messages for them. If you can get shareable content, user-generated content, that's an absolute win, because rather than just using your network, you're actually getting your followers are genuinely putting the message out. With lots of small businesses who deliver things, this is a beautiful example. It's a beautifully packaged. Maybe it comes with a little card, a little ribbon, it's wrapped in a net bag. And just think about, how can I make it so visually appealing that people want to snap a photo of it, tag me into it, because I put my social media handles on the little thank you card. On the back of that card, maybe it says, we'd love it if you left us a review. If somebody tags you, you share out their content as well. Thank them for it. Amazing to see this arrived safely. We hope you loved it. We hope your recipient loved it. Okay. Think back across your list and think of ways you could encourage your audience to engage with your brand, and how you can make that engagement really authentic, really relatable. In terms of sharing out your content, graphics are key. Canva is an amazing app. There's a free level, and then there's more features that you could pay for. And it helps you to create quality social media posts in the right sizes and shapes for the different platforms. They all have different sizes and shapes of assets that you need. You can add your logo in the same place. You can make your branding. You can choose the words you're going to use, choose the fonts you're going to use the colors. And if you put your logo in, it can actually help you pick the colors from your logo to be the color that you use in the different element. Amazing free graphic design app. Run your grammar. Make sure you check all the grammar. It's not just about spell check. It's about making sure the grammar's correct in all your posts. Grammarly will check as you go. You can plug it in as a plug-in to your browser. Even just writing all your posts in advance, going away and then going back with fresh eyes and reading them. Because quite often you're perfectly good at grammar, but your thumbs might get in the way. Okay. And management of social media accounts. I've just said to write them in advance and check them later. In terms of keeping up with posting, set yourself some time each week to create your content, and then use something like Hootsuite or Sprout Social or another social media management app. There are tons out there. They all have different features, different level of what you pay for, what you don't. And you use a social media management tool to actually help you to decide to run that calendar for you. So you put the elements in, and then when it gets to the time, the messages drop in. All right, rather than you sitting there waiting to post something. Okay, over to you. Set yourself some goals. Define that tone of voice. If you need more help with tone of voice, join us for writing for social media. And then make sure you focus on one platform or two. I am completely out of time, unfortunately. I know there were tons of questions. So basically, the question I did spot was for Widya, trying to stick with Instagram as the main platform. Does it have a good perspective in the future? Honestly, that's not that, that's a proper crystal ball question. Work out, Widya, what's best for your audience. Our audiences do change. I saw a great thing that Instagram, over the last 5 years, their average age has gone up by 5 years. That's because actually a lot of us will stick to the platform that we're really deeply invested in. And it takes a lot to get us to change out of platforms. So keep in touch with trends, what's going on. Don't just jump on a new platform because people say you should. Go there if that's where your audience are, is what I was trying to say for the questions. All right. So, that's not clicking. Let's see why not. All right. So next steps. I would love it if you could put in the chat right now the 1, 2, or 3 things you're going to do differently as a result of what we've spoken about today. That might be joining us for more webinars. It might be taking a focus on a new platform. Whatever it is, it might be turning off a platform that you've previously not had much luck with. Whatever it is, pop that in the chat now. We love to know, and it helps us for the future. It also helps you to make that call out to the universe that that's what's going to happen. If you work for a small business or for a charity and you're based here in the UK, please do join us at g.co/UK mentoring for a Google mentoring session. Absolutely free to do so. And you can work with one of our business mentors who will help you take your next steps. And finally, apologies for running slightly over, and real apologies for that little hiccup at the start. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for staying with me. We have to wrap up. We're completely out of time, but I hope it's been of use to you. At the beginning of the session, I mentioned that there are lots of ways you can get involved with Google Digital Garage. So do check out our website for more webinars, for the other activities that we've got going on there. And other than that, thank you for joining me. Roshane and I look forward to welcoming you again to another Google Digital Garage training session sometime soon. Have a wonderful day.